Hi, it is Mark Stewart, first video of the week, and it concerns last week's press conference by the last prominent candidate to enlist for the New Hampshire presidential primaries. That was Deval Patrick. Now, I was the first candidate, not prominent, but I was first back on October 30th. Mr. Patrick, Governor Patrick, came the second to last day, and he gave a very long press conference. That's a good thing, too. He didn't have aides that would falsely cut him off. Ooh, we have to go. It's BS. They want to stifle somebody from saying too much. Not the case for Governor Patrick. Good. And most of what he said, good. Here's the one thing I want to comment about. And it was picked up by Kevin Landrigan at the Union Leader. It was the one thing I scribbled down from that conference. Kevin was furiously writing away. I had one thing. He says, capitalism has a lot to answer for. Mark Stewart's response, no, it doesn't. Capitalism has lifted billions out of poverty. Capitalism is the best ism ever created, probably created by God. It is so perfect. Recognize why it's so perfect. It gets us, without force, without even asking, the stuff, the services, the goods that we want. Why? Because there's a profit motive to the persons who make goods and services that we want. And there's still a profit even after the first person does it to make the next one better and better. We don't have to ask because a lot of humans are anticipating what we want. They build the better mousetrap before there's a widespread need. They don't demand any money of us. They might ask some investors for capital. Investors do this because they see a good prospect. They're willing to take their chance with their own money. No state force. And it works. State force, that's what communism does, says you will produce that amount of rice. You will build a lighthouse to those specifications. You will make clothing. And they don't have the broad choice. Do they make it anywhere nearly as well? What came out of the Soviet Union? 70 years of existence. And what did they make well besides armaments? That's it. China. Old-style China, imperial China from before the Maoist takeover produced a lot of good stuff. Since then, well, nothing until they reformed and with Deng Xiaoping became more Western. Now they produce very well. What's the difference? People are the same. The system, back to capitalism, has dramatically changed, and with it lifted millions of Chinese people to a much higher standard of living. Why are Americans with such a high standard of living? I don't think we're inherently better people. We don't come from a better stock of humanity. I don't think we're any more diligent in terms of working, not inherently, but we have a system that rewards diligence. And because of it, because you can do better for your family, and if you really want to go for it, you can get rich in a capitalist system. Good for you, and good for everyone that you've served with a better product, a good service. Let's say you're not in business, but you work for a business. That's the majority of Americans. You prosper by doing good, as opposed to the command economy that says, we kind of like you. We're going to elevate you. You're one of us. You'll protect us if there's problems. Here's a gun. Use it not on us, but on those people if they agitate. That's how thuggish regimes stay in power, but they don't uplift their citizens, do they? What Deval Patrick might have been alluding to is differences in status based on those who can take advantage of capitalism more than others. But you wouldn't want sameness. You would not want equality of condition across the board. I remind you, if you really think you would, you better turn off that computer that you're watching this on. Because some people don't have good computers, and we have to reach the level of everybody else. Capitalism lets people prosper and buy what they want with what they've earned. Communism certainly doesn't. No-ism does as well as capitalism, okay? When Confucianism reigned in China, and in the early mid-1800s, the Western world kind of discovered what China was about. It was decrepit, okay? It was such a lower standard of living. Animism dominated Africa, still does in some parts. They produce very little that the rest of the world wants, and most of their nations are in abject poverty. The few that are not are ones that came to westernization thanks to colonialism, okay? That the British Empire largely was the ones that helped Nigeria and Kenya move up in the status by bringing to it Western values that included capitalism. Capitalism has supported all other isms for the last 3,000 years. And if you are concerned about inequities, that's not a capitalism concern, that's a welfare issue, which deserves to be thought of separately. Scandinavian countries, which are capitalist, and they do produce very well, then they've chosen to say, with our gains, we're going to redistribute in a way that is much more broad than the US. But all of us are capitalistic and are better off for it. If you want to address welfare, it's a different issue. Please don't blame capitalism, the greatest uplifter in humanity history. I'm Mark Stewart. Glad to have you in the race, Duval. I will see you on the trail.